Hello and welcome to 8th Series 8 Metagame Monday, where I take a look at popular team archetype and explain how and why its sets work, how to beat it, and how it matches up against other archetypes in form of replays. Today's focus will be on Yveltal, and you might be asking, well, how is Yveltal different from Calyrex-Ice? Calyrex-Ice has better ability, arguably, and is much faster, but because dark types and ghost types have the same type effectiveness, or at least are super effective against the same types, how do these two things differ? So basically Yveltal is much bulkier and got access to max airstream, which makes it faster in the long run. But definitely the main selling point of Yveltal is that it's just bulky and it's not quadra super effective weak to some other types like ghost types and dark types. You resist these types, while Calyrex-Ice just kind of finds to them regardless of what source are they coming from. So yeah, Yveltal is definitely a lot bulkier, and as a result it can create... It doesn't have to have such a hyper-offensive core around it, like Whimsicott in DD to protect it. No. Yveltal is self-sufficient and just can't be bulky. So yeah, today's focus will be on Yveltal Raichu team with some consistent checks, Pokemon around it. Of course, Incineroar, Tapu Fini, and Megas are like Grass, Fire, Water Core that are extremely consistent. And yeah, we're trying to make a consistent team this time, unlike the Calyrex-Ice like I did last week. So why? What kind of set did I choose on Yveltal? Well, I chose to have Weakness Policy set. I would say Life Orb would be probably better if he wouldn't use Raichu, but I think since we got Volt Switch on Raichu, it's... Yeah, you can Volt Switch yourself with Raichu, proc the Weakness Policy and make Yveltal absolute wrecking ball. Especially along with the max Earthstring boost. You can just Volt Switch yourself, switch to Intimidate, switch to Misty Terrain, switch to Redirection, and just wreak havoc with +2 special attack Yveltal, and soon to be +1 speed Yveltal. Other than that, Dark Pulse is obvious choice for coverage moves, and Fall Play, again, this is discutable, we can discuss this a lot, but some people prefer Heat Wave since it allows for Dynamax Yveltal to be more effective, since Full Play in Dynamax form is essentially useless and much weaker than Dark Pulse. But Heat Wave has one perk, and that it hits Zacian super effectively if it Dynamaxes. But I chose to run Full Play for two reasons. One of them, Full Play actually beats Zacian a bit better if we do not Dynamax. Full Play actually hits much harder than Heat Wave, which is unstabbed, but Full Play does like over 50% dissation because it gets the attack boost thanks to its ability, and it also checks Thunderous incarnate form with Defiant much better. You see, if we max Darkness, we give it attack boost from Defiant, so Full Playing it is a bit safer and gives us options against Thunderous incarnate form as a result. The EV spread is not too complicated. I think this spread has no real reason other than, oh wow, we got a nice number here, but I just wanted to have Yveltal with max speed, so it takes advantage of its speed boost capabilities from max Earthstream as best as it can. And then I just put some bulk EVs, just so it's not just so it throws calculations off. Some people might be investing their Pokemon to KO a 4 HP Yveltal, but we throw that off guard with 108 HP. Which is further supported by its massive base HP and Dynamax, so... And the rest of it just put 4 here, and rest on the special attack, just so it has some firepower behind it. Raichu has, obviously because it's a frail, advanced Focus Sash, Lightning Rod is amazing synergy, has amazing synergy with Tapu Fini and Yveltal, since it draws the lightning or electric type attacks into Raichu. Fake Out, of course, gaining momentum, Volt Switch is for gaining momentum as well, for pivoting, and you can self-proc Yveltal as well as an added bonus. Nuzzle allows us to check Zacian even better, and Tailwind teams a bit better as well. Basically anything that's max Earthstreaming, Tailwinding, or Zacian and gets really annoyed by Nuzzle, and we got a full parry chance as well for that nice cheesy one condition. And Eerie Impulse or Charm, basically in last slot. I prefer Eerie Impulse since they're just... You can check physical attackers with Incineroar's Intimidate, but special attackers cannot be checked by. There is no special Intimidate, so I think Eerie Impulse covers these options a bit better, and it checks Kyogre and Dialga much better. Basically, you just check these Pokemon better. And of course, max speed, max special attack. There is no reason to really run bulk if you got Focus Sash, so yeah. Incineroar is, again, some kind of like... I would say some bit of a glue to the team. As with Fake Out and Flare Blitz, it can check Sun pretty well. You're gonna see that later in the video, how it does that in replay section, but basically Incineroar's idea is to be bulky with Citrus Berry, get a fake out Flare Blitz, a combination of just so we can, for example, fake out Venusaur so it does not sleep out or turn 1. Flare Blitz is checked more so over G-Max Venusaur, Parting Shot for gaining momentum, and Starless for annoying Tapu Finis in the back a little bit better. Since Tapu Fini is actually a problem to this thing, believe it or not, in late game. And if we want our Calmine Fini to win against other Calmine Fini, we want to just snarl these Tapu Finis down. And Citrus Berry is just recovery item. I get a breakpoint here in defense stat, as you can see. Since I'm at multiple of 10, I get extra point. I'm 20. We take Max Quake from a Life Orb G-Max Venusaur. We outbid as many Incineroars as we can, and rest of it is put into HP. Tapu Fini is again kind of like glued to this thing, just so we have additional check for Amoonguss, since Metagrosses are going to be our main Trick Room check, and we do not want to get overwhelmed by Amoonguss in Trick Room, so Misty Surge gives us some flexibility, and also gives us some flexibility against Sleep Powder if we want to use Incineroar as our main check for Venusaur. Other than that, this set is just so standard, it just pains. Leftovers is actually a bit better, I think, than Wikiberry, because it allows us to be more effective in late game. If you're up against like 2 special attackers like Torkoal and Porygon 2 in the back, we can reasonably stall them out just because we got leftovers. Wikiberry is one-time recovery, but with leftovers you get kind of like infinite recovery against these 2 members. And we can protect to get pretty much 12% each turn, and Try Attack Porygon 2 will be unable to break through this. And Torkoal is the same case, because it rarely runs Solar Beam right now. We get a breakpoint here again with special attack, because we get multiple of 10 from 140. We run as much speed so we can speed creep other Tapu Finis and stuff like max speed Lapras, Rillaboom Beam. We just want to outspeed this stuff. 4 here, so we get EV spread efficiency, and rest of it is put into HP. Now Amoonguss is running Cobble Berry because there's just so many max Airstreamers, and basically even if they got like other stab like Xerneas got like Fire Stab, it can use like G-Max Powerball against us to KO the Amoonguss. It's good because in that case opponent doesn't get max Airstream boost. So yeah, we pretty much force opponent to not use max Airstream, because otherwise they will be put to sleep with Spore. That's amazing move. Rage Powder again redirects some attacks that could be dangerous for our Pokemon otherwise. Close Smoke is for resetting stats from weakness plus a boosted Pokemon. And Protect is just protect to just, for example, go for like 50-50. So opponent might want to prevent Spore, but we're just gonna protect the Amoonguss. And like if opponent thinks we're gonna protect Amoonguss, we can just attack. We just can protect the other slot like Yveltal and Spore with Amoonguss instead. It can protect on Amoonguss creates these kind of 50-50s, and we can cheese some bad matchups as a result. Other than that, we got. I'm gonna link the EV spread efficiency in the description of the video, but basically you want to have your lower defense stat wants to be half of the HP, and we get breakpoint here in special defense again. Whoops, we see +2 for 8 EVs. Yeah, and Metagross is our like last glue to this thing, I would say. Assault Vest gives it like better capability to check Aleki in late game or some sort, because Aleki after Raichu gets knocked out has pretty much field day over our team, but with Assault Vest and Earthquake we're going to be able to KO it. Ice Punch is for Thunderous Incarnate form, better checking because this team doesn't really have a good matchup against Thunderous Incarnate form. You see, Raichu is the only Pokemon that can stop it, but gets to it KO'd by Max Airstream. Tapu Fini, Incineroar, Yveltal, and Amoonguss all get to it KO'd, but Metagross can boost the defense stats and can check it with Hailstorm. Zen Headbutt is for potentially changing the terrain against Tapu Fini, for example. If we set up the Psychic terrain, we can suddenly go for Sports with Amoonguss, and we can surprise the opponent greatly with that. And of course, we don't want to miss out on Steel type stab, especially since we got the great Max Quake special defense boost and great Steel Spike defense boost. And yeah, this EV spread is pretty self-explanatory as well. You want to get a even number here. So, because if we use Assault Vest and we do not have even number, the Assault Vest rounds down our special defense stat, but with even number, it does not. We get a breakpoint in attack stat, we give it as much speed as we can, so we speed creep other Incineroars. Yes, Incineroars are running well over 90 speed nowadays, and I don't want to risk getting outsped by them and just getting Flare Blitz to oblivion, and the rest of it is put into HP. Now, I'm gonna just mention in a little short section, I'm gonna also mention that I faced some other Yveltal teams while I prepared for Players Cup 3. This is a Yveltal team I think I faced a lot on ladder. Excuse me, that's wrong spread. I think the guy was more so of a troll because I know he ran a max defensive Yveltal just for trolling purposes. But he can run more serious spread like I shown in the previous team building session. Celestial was his or hers secondary airstream sweeper. Well, basically it's Metagross that doesn't check Xerneas as well, but gets access to max airstream and can surprise the opponent as a result. Also, it checks Incineroar much better because Max Rockfall just one-shots the Incineroar, while Yveltal struggles to do that even with plus 2 max airstream. Raichu is more or less the same. Rillaboom, basically they have 2 fake outers, so they can just cycle fake outs almost infinitely in late game and to irritate the opponent. It was also very special defensive Rillaboom. Also there was of course Landorus with Rock Slide and Swords Dance for additional secondary sweeping, as you can for example go for Fake Out and then set up Swords Dance and then just reverse sweep the opponent. Also Swords Dance Landorus is amazing against dual screens, Grimmsnarl. Also I forgot to mention that if you got Full Play and Electro Web at the same time, you can slow down the Thunderous with Electro Web below Yveltal's Spade, give Thunderous an attack boost, and then use the Full Play to attack with the attack boost for massive damage, which I think is pretty funny. So yeah, I'm gonna post both of these podcasts in the description of the video. And now let's get to the matchup section. In this matchup, I want to stress out how important this turn 1 is. We got Metagross in the back and Incineroar to pretty much check Kartana and Alaki pretty much flawlessly in the back. But taking care of this Kyogre plus Tornadus lead is absolutely essential. So what do you think is our best play here? I would say Fake Out plus Max Darkness to Tornadus, prevent the Tailwind, and then reverse sweep with Nuzzles and Eerie Impulses and Max Darkness Eye. Because Kyogre with -1 special defense almost gets knocked out by Max Darkness. That is wrong. Opponent will think of this option and will instead Dynamax Tornadus turn 1, go for Max Airstream, but because it's unaffected by Fake Out, even if Raichu would try to go for another attack other than Fake Out, the Tornadus would outspeed it, go for Max Airstream, finish off Raichu with Water Spout, because Kyogre is suddenly faster after Max Airstream, and then opponent successfully reverse sweeps me. So we're gonna try to combat that with very unorthodox play. So basically if opponent thinks you're bad, and you know opponent is good, you can do this following play. Tornadus Dynamaxes, Yveltal Dynamaxes, and we're gonna go for Fake Out. Opponent goes for Max Airstream, as I would think he or she should go for it. And Max Darkness hits into the Kyogre, goes for great damage, and we suddenly are taking care of the Kyogre. Of course Kyogre will go for Orange Impulse here, and Airstream is like, this is a free double knockout basically. Airstream hits into the Kyogre, finishes it off, and now Metagross got free reign over this thing. Now this turn is again very important. Opponent cannot really... Electro Web doesn't KO Yveltal, and neither does Max Airstream or Max Hailstorm from Tornadus. And opponent really needs to KO Yveltal, or else it's Regieleki faints. But if they use Regieleki to KO the Yveltal, Metagross will be able to go for attack and KO the Regieleki with Earthquake. So this is pretty much like pick your poison, there is no outcome, there is no way they're gonna come out on top this turn. As you see here, opponent just tried to go for Hailstorm, for example, failed to KO the Yveltal, and suddenly we just go for max big attack in the Tornadus. Metagross cannot get knocked out in this turn. So yeah, and like in late game, if the Tornadus just gets checked by Ice Punch, Incineroar just is extremely annoying against the Kartana with Fake Out, Flare Blitz, Intimidate. It's a win basically. So flow this turn 1, maybe game 2, it's gonna be kind of a 50-50, but you can adapt with like Nuzzling, for example, the Kyogre, Eerie Impulsing in the Kyogre, faking out the Tornadus even if you're over predicting. So yeah, but this is definitely what you should do in game 1. So against a Trickery Moid of the Sun, we do want to try to knock out Porygon 2 as soon as possible. So we're gonna go for Fake Out plus Max Darkness to just weaken it into a Volt Switch plus Max Darkness KO range. Fun fact here, I'm gonna actually stop the battle here. If we successfully Volt Switch to Porygon 2 here and switch to Incineroar, the Yveltal will get 3 hit KO'd by the Max Hailstorm, which is extremely useful. But if we Volt Switch ourselves, we just get rid of that possibility and Glacier will just 2-hit KO us. This is why I go for a Volt Switch in the Porygon 2 here. But I unfortunately failed to go for the Volt Switch and we just hit the ground on really hard instead. Yeah, after that, it's just pretty much a switch bonanza until the end. The idea is to really just get the Groudon as well, or just damage it as well as you can, because Incineroar plus Feeny really check the Glacier Incineroar Porygon 2 core in the back really well. But Groudon is like that one annoying factor that just prevents you from really going like, yeah, see here, like it's set up Sun and suddenly you can't really multi-border the Incineroar. It's really irritating. So after you KO it though, and after you start just really parting shotting the Glacier a lot, the Glacier should not be no longer a threat. Just parting shot it, KO the Porygon 2, remember to KO the Porygon 2 so it doesn't set up the Trick Room, and then you should be able to win the game. In the second replay, I go over here, I actually go up against the fast variant of the team, of the Venusaur plus Charizard lead. I'm gonna simulate the fact that I'm gonna guess the turn 1 switch incorrectly. Instead of targeting down the Charizard with like Nuzzle or Eerie Impulse plus Volt Switch, I instead go into the Groudon incorrectly, because it's kind of a 50-50 turn 1 against this lead, unfortunately. So yeah, here we're basically just gonna Eerie Impulse the Charizard here. Again, Groudon just will probably want to overprotect. It will be overprotective in these game plans, I feel. So let me actually go hyper fast here, because it's nothing really interesting happening. Volt switching into Feeny, KO in the Groudon is important. Venusaur probably wants to switch in and KO the Tapu Fini right here, but with -2 special attack on Charizard, and the Charizard is not really good threat, we sack the Raichu here, so Fini survives into the late game, and Fini is absolutely amazing in late game against these two things, especially like Air Slash does nothing, as you saw here. You didn't see, but like really, the essential part is really, in these matchups against Sun, is to really KO Venusaur as soon as possible, preserve Fini for late game, and KO Groudon and Porygon 2 as soon as possible. Porygon 2 probably first, because Trick Room is horrible for your team. Then KO Groudon, because it's set up Sun and it's really annoying for Fini to clean up. And if you fulfill these two prophecies, Tapu Fini should clean up the late game as well as you can. Of course, Eerie Impulsing the Charizard is great. Air Streaming just to outspeed Venusaur could be great, out +2 speed. You got a bunch of options here, but remember to KO the Porygon 2 so Trick Room doesn't get set up. It's really important. Against Xerneas, we're not going to be using Yveltal at all. Instead, we're going to focus on Metagross's overall bulk being able to overwhelm the opponent, especially with Assault Vest. Opponent got almost like no chance to deal with the Metagross. When you look at the checks, possible checks, you see like Incineroar with Flare Blitz, but I can defense boost myself and do it KO it with Max Quake. Landorus can Dynamax, but we just can KO back immediately with Max Hellstorm. And if Xerneas ever becomes like too much of a threat, we can just Close Mog it, as you're seeing here. Metagross is the main idea against this matchup. We should just overwhelm the opponent really easily. And if you are fearing the Charizard variant or in DD variants, like, let me address the Charizard variant, you can add a Max Rockfall to Metagross and just cheese it this way, instead of the Zen Headbutt, for example. As you're seeing here, it's not necessary to Zen Headbutt Amiga's turn 1. And we can use some other possibilities. Against the Indeedee, yeah, we can just go for Max Quake, for example, and then Max Dispike to finish it off if it's just that kind of bulky Indeedee, with like Max Defense and Saki Seed. Metagross doesn't care about this at all, and fun fact, we're gonna reset their Saki train immediately with Fini turn 1, so the Amogus switch in, as you saw turn 1 here, Amogus won't really fear the Indeedee at all, so yeah, that's the game plan against Xerneas. Just use your Metagross and boost up your defenses. So you might think Calyrex Shadow Rider is a really easy matchup, but it's rather the opposite. Thundurus is extremely oppressing against you, and like Calyrex Shadow Rider actually checks a lot of your team. It's not Yveltal and Incineroar, of course, but the Calyrex Shadow Rider is extremely efficient against pretty much everything else. And you cannot really one-shot the Calyrex Shadow Rider because you got that impending doom of the... Well, you can actually KO it, but look how like clunky it is. Yveltal takes so much damage just because it cannot Dynamax, because if it would go for Max Darkness to KO Calyrex in a Dynamax form, it would give Thundurus +2 attack and it would pretty much automatically lose. But this way we actually remove the Calyrex Shadow Rider, which we established is a best lead against this in a previous video. You can watch Calyrex Shadow Rider from the previous week, of course, you see it on YouTube. Anyway, here, after we go actually Calyrex Shadow Rider, Metagross has an absolute field day over this team. Like, completely field day. Basically, opponent can really check it. As you're gonna see, I'm gonna go for like hyper fast. Yveltal gets KO'd, we get another max defense boost. You might think like, yeah, this is like KOing the Tapu Fini is logical here because otherwise Moonblast would just KO the Urshifu, we max mind stop KO the Urshifu, and suddenly Thundurus just finds the Ice Punch. Another replay I want to cover here is the version if we go up against Indeedee plus Thundurus in current form. I don't remember what we did here, but basically I would anticipate just going about the same thing. Yeah, we just pretty much protect the Amogus because I predict opponent will go for Max Earthstream plus Expanding Force. I don't think opponent will go for Max Lightning unless opponent would be going for some super duper prediction. And this we can get a free KO on Indeedee, and this just removed it from the battlefield. Indeedee very rarely has Dazzling Gleam on his team, I believe. Calyrex Shadow Rider comes into the field. This is the situation we absolutely... Alright, so we are slowing out last turn of Thundurus' Dynamax. Unfortunately, this is going to become quite a stressful game right after, because you see here, Calyrex Shadow Rider just... how much damage it's doing. Like, it will do over 50% to Tapu Fini next turn. For Dynamax and the Yveltal, because we can suddenly just check the Calyrex. We just really want to KO the Calyrex, so Metagross in the back wins the game. We're gonna go for Max Darkness, just KO the Calyrex. So Metagross has a field day in late game. And again here we're gonna just... I'm gonna pass this turn because Urshifu cannot outspeed Yveltal, so Thundurus has to take care of it. Because if Thundurus doesn't take care of it, Yveltal will take care of Urshifu and Metagross wins in late game. Also, I forgot to mention that I do not have defined Thundurus here, but it should be defined and it doesn't really matter in context of this game. But yeah, this is basically what comes out on the mind. And because we got Metagross in the back, opponent is forced to Surging Strikes. If it would go for Poison Jab, that would KO Tapu Fini. Metagross would yet again check the Thundurus, and it would completely blow out the Bang Urshifu in late game. So basically, oh yeah, we missed the Zen Headbutt here, but I'm actually simulating the battle correctly here. Zen Headbutt, and the late game should come out as this, as long as we hit the Zen Headbutt. So yeah, it's not a positive matchup, but we can definitely, we have enough breathing room in it to just do something about it. I'm not going to go up against myself in this matchup, I'm just going to give you like basic ideas of what happens in this match and what's supposed to be happening. So, the interactions are as following. Amogus can Spore Yveltal, and Yveltal cannot really one-shot Amogus with Max Airstream. And if you waste Dynamax against Amogus, it's pretty much game over. So, Amogus is highly viable lead against Yveltal. But yeah, rest of the matchup is pretty much going to be either early game with Yveltal is going to be essential, and going for Max Airstreams, and late game is going to revolve around having Tapu Fini protected well with Amogus and Incineroar, and setting up Calm Mind, since like you see here, if you bring Raichu, like it's an option, but Raichu gets walled by Raichu and it's fairly useless. We can actually though put it in like a stalemate mode, like opponent's Raichu can't do anything, your Raichu can't do anything. And Raichu is really the only really good check to Tapu Fini other than Amogus with Closmog with its Eerie Impulse, and Tapu Fini is ridiculously notoriously difficult for this team to deal with in late game because Muddy Water really Twitgoes Incineroar, Moonblast Twitgoes Yveltal, and it's really annoying for opponent to deal with. So I think key to winning this matchup is really going for early game with Yveltal that checks Amogus, remove the Amogus, and then win the late game with Tapu Fini. This is like what your game plan should be against the other Yveltal teams. Mimirex is another case of where we are probably not really going to be using Yveltal for that much good. Instead, we're going to be trying to use Tapu Fini as our like sport check turn 1, like we don't want opponent to spore us too much. And we're going to go for Ice Punch so we do not KO the Amogus. Unfortunately, we get a crit here. What you want to do here is not really KO Amogus early and start setting up Calm Minds with Fini so you can check the Torkoal a bit better. This is important. You want to keep Torkoal in check at all times, since if Torkoal is not kept in check, it will be able to check Metagross, and then Metagross won't be able to check Calyrex. But because we already got a Calm Mind up, we already are able to check the Torkoal, and this opponent is kind of forced to bring in its weakness plus a Calyrex. Also, I'm just going to take a bunch of worst case scenarios here of Calyrex opponent pretty much predicting every single turn correctly. Yeah, we're going to go for Steel Spine and a Calyrex, which does absolute massive chunk of damage. I'm going to just switch to Incineroar here, intimidate the Calyrex, opponent predicts this correctly yet again, goes for Max Quick and the Tapu Fini, raises the special defense. But as long as we keep the Calyrex in check, we should be able to win this game, because While both Mimikyu that's heavily intimidated, and Torkoal that's a fire type cannot really check the late game at all. So yeah, you see here we just get the Torkoal, and now opponent set up second Trick Room. I think I actually went for a choke here. I was supposed to switch Incineroar from the other slot, but it didn't really matter because Glacial Lance doesn't really KO the Yveltal. We broke the weakness policy, and really setting up Tapu Fini would be able to also KO the Calyrex here, so just switch the Incineroar in second slot and you should be out of a blush. Use Metagame to boost the special defense and defense, use Calm Mind Fini to scare the Torkoal, and you should be out of a blush against Mimirax. Dialga is absolutely sad matchup. You got absolute big advantage here. I'm actually going to set it real fast because, like, really, the whole matchup is revolving around, like, of course they will set up Light Screen, but you got Air Impulse to pretty much check their Dynamax Pokemon, and they really cannot check your Dynamax Pokemon with Spirit Break because you got the weakness policy. And you see, this is like, Frail Thing is Raichu. After -3 special attack, it doesn't do all that much. Also, Max Darkness just slowly and surely chipping away at Dialga. It's just sad to see this. I'm gonna go like hyper fast right now. Spirit Break procs the weakness policy. All of a sudden, Yveltal KOs Dialga. Tapu Fini just set up the first Calm Mind. And here I made a big mistake. You're supposed to switch to Incineroar here, so you can start checking opponent's Tapu Fini with Snarls. And your Tapu Fini should go for checking a Grimmsnarl immediately. KO the Grimmsnarl and win with your Fini. Set up the opponent's Fini with your special attack and special defense boosts. Because this is what's going to come down in late game. These Tapu Fini wars. It's about the same as Yveltal, but like I made a mistake here by staying in with Yveltal for too long and not checking the opponent's Fini for too much. And like you see here, already opponent's Fini has the edge. While if we just switched to Incineroar previously, we would be able to check it much better. And basically Incineroar just completely bullies us right here because of these Snarl boosts. Like it's... Yeah, here we just lose the game unfortunately because our Tapu Fini is unable to beat their Tapu Fini, and that's very important. So yeah, switch to Incineroar, switch to Incineroar early so you can parting shot and start parting shotting and snarling the Fini to oblivion so your Fini wins the game in late game against the opponent's Dialga. That is important. Other than that, the early game should be piece of cake with the Raichu Impulse against Dialga. I'm not going to go into too much of a detail why it's a suicide for opponent to go for a Solgaleo Spectre lead against Yveltal. It's much more flexible for the opponent to just go with the Grimmsnarl lead and start setting up dual screens. So this is like prime example where weakness policy can be pretty much procced for free. Raichu can be pretty irritating for opponent, especially with Nuzzle, so I think opponent will gladly take the opportunity to just KO the Raichu turn 1 and raise its special defense with Max Quake so it's even more resilient to the Yveltal. Here I think opponent would probably most likely want to KO the Mingus since it just can be annoying as well in late game and it can go for Regenerator boost and like then it can redirect the attacks, and that's something you don't really want to happen in late game. So yeah, here I actually made I think a little bit of a mistake in this game plan by going for a Max Darkness in the Solgaleo. And look how well it took that. So like, yeah, if you're thinking like, oh, why didn't opponent go for Max Rockfall in the Yveltal tournament? This is why. I get +2 special attack, Dark Aura and Stab, but with special defense boost and Light Screen, look how low damage that does. Also here I'm gonna mention that this crit I did on Moltres actually made the game plan worse for me because Airslash would have KO'd here, but if it would not get a special attack boost, it would not KO me, and the game would pretty much go absolutely the same way because Fini would pretty much check this late game all on its own with Calm Mind boost and such. So this is like a exemplary game plan against Solgaleo Grimmsnarl, but I think since this team is just so flexible and bulky, opponent could do like different play at any given point, and you should be prepared. But I think with Yveltal, Animingus, and like bunch of bulky Pokemon, you got the advantage here. So just play well, and you should be able to achieve victory. Does Zacian check a Steel type that's Dynamaxed? Not really. This is an exemplary lead what opponent probably should do against me. Because Lapras really banks on the ability to just go for super effective move into the Yveltal and actually do some damage as a result. Because if Lapras is not really doing a super effective damage, it's not doing much damage at all. So yeah, this is a sample team I've got from victory rate. A lot of people are actually using this sample team because it's in the first slot of the sample teams. It's literally the first sample team that's listed there. And I think it's pretty good sample team as well, because this Zacian Lapras score actually really checks Tornado pretty well, which I feel other Zacian team can lack. Alright, so I create the Zacian here, but as you see, it would be inconsequential, as Lapras is on Dynamaxing. It doesn't really do that much damage to Tapu Fini, and even a +1 attack, the Zacian is not doing that much damage to Fini, just because you see we got actually +2 defense on Fini, and Fini easily just did like over 30% to Zacian, and we should be able to win this. So as long as you're going to boost up defense with Metagross, Zacian can't really check you, neither can they check the Fini, and we got like Incineroar and Yveltal in the back as well to just finish up the check. So what are some Yveltal counters? Well, the best probably Yveltal counter that is also budget and not restricted is probably Glass Tier. Glass Tier can use like all the different items to check Yveltal in different kind of ways. Assault Vest makes it more resilient against Fini and Yveltal. White Herb makes it more resilient against Intimidate, and if you're running self-proc weakness policy, like for example Rock Tomb on your team with Dusclops, you can self-proc the weakness policy to make it absolutely scary against the Yveltal team. If you got none of these options and you want to, for example, run Assault Vest, I would even recommend running something like that deters Intimidate, like I don't know, Main Shell could, for example, deter Intimidate, although it's not a good example, but for example, running a defined Pokemon or a competitive Pokemon really discourages the use of Incineroar, and thus, because Incineroar is really the only real check the Glass Tier other than Metagross, I think this could be very difficult for the opponent's Yveltal team to take care of. Of course, you have to have like some kind of like other idea against the Metagross, but I think Metagross is fairly rare on Yveltal teams nowadays. I think I really see a lot of Celesteela, which again, Assault Vest Glass Tier would like to see, and as a result, their only check will be Incineroar, which is again deterred by Melodic. So I think this could be a great idea. The best, probably standalone check to this team is of course Thundurus with Defined and Assault Vest, which makes it extremely resilient against the Max Darkness. And pretty much it is able to do it KO everything on their team. Amogus, Incineroar, Tapu Fini, Yveltal, even Raichu with Max Airstream. It's really scary for the opponent's team to deal with. Of course, the Yveltal team has to have checks for Thundurus, so keep an eye. If you see Regieleki plus Yveltal lead, do not Dynamax Thundurus, because that is the guaranteed Electro Web plus Full Play. They will slow you down with Electro Web, get you Defiant Beast, and then they'll finish you off with Full Play, because they use your boosted attack. So keep an eye on that. This is one of the most popular strategies Yveltal teams use, so try to counteract that and be a little bit more smart. Get a Tailwind team, get a secondary mode next to Thundurus, so they not only have to take care of Thundurus, but for example Trick Room, Tailwind, or Resurrection, Spore from Amogus, you know? I think that's the basic idea. If you're running Hyper Offense though, I think the best counteraction to Yveltal is definitely Darmanitan. Darmanitan checks all the steel types the Yveltal team can run with Choice Band Flare Blitz, Gorilla Tactics, Choice Band, and Icicle Crash with Choice Band and Gorilla Tactics KO even the max defense Dynamax Yveltal, and it's absolutely brutal, this Icicle Crash, in a lot of other scenarios, so it's not like monotone check. In late game, after Raichu faints, I think Regieleki deserves a good mention, like honorable mention as well, because like if you didn't Dynamax, of course Regieleki completely decimates the opponent, but really, if you're running Life Orb and Thunderbolt, you do like over, I would say 70% to Incineroar. Your only really scary check to Regieleki at that part of the game is Amogus, which is again a lot of the time it's wasted in early game to protect the Dynamax as Raichu is. So after you KO Raichu, after you KO Amogus, Regieleki goes on absolute rampage in late game. Tapu Fini, Yveltal, all of them absolutely hate it. And of course Celesteela would hate it as well. More like if you're not really into a Thundurus and you want like Intimidator, I think Physical Max Quaker with Assault Vest plus Light Screen is also pretty scary for Yveltal team to deal with, since you pretty much counter their special defense drops with your special defense raises. And really, Max Quake hits like Fini hard, Max Airstream hits, Amogus hard, Max Quake of course hits, Incineroar pretty hard, so like, it's not entirely useless against Yveltal either. It gets hit hard by Full Play, but it cannot, for example, get cheesed by the Electro plus Full Play strategy, and is get max rock for the Yveltal for massive damage. So yeah, if you're running like light screen, get a physical max quicker like Landorus, and he should be out of oblige as well. And more checks, I would say honorable mentions are against, I've said many times on the video before, late game Calm Mind Fini is absolutely horrible. It's absolutely horrible for them to check that. They have to use their Calm Mind Fini, but if you can use your Calm Mind Fini more effectively and support your Calm Mind Fini a bit more with like Lismok, Amoonguss, Snarl, and Incineroar, you should be able to out-Fini them in late game. So yeah, Fini hits really hard. Opponents Fini, Incineroar, Yveltal get all checked by Fini. Early game, Hyper Offense, Meteor Beam, Power Herb. Now Heligo can do massive damage to Yveltal, and it's also pretty resilient to its special Max Darkness, and it resists Max Airstream, so it's a pretty good check to that. And it can Dynamax, set up Sand, and get Special Defense Beast as well because of the Sand. It's really hard to check for Yveltal at that point. And it hits Tapu Fini super effectively, hits Amoonguss pretty hard, and one-shots Incineroar as well. So I think an Heligo could be a good check. And if you're running some kind of like Sleep user, I think Sleep is generally hard for them to deal with because they use Yveltal as their main sweeper a lot. And if you force them to use Yveltal as their primary sweeper, you pretty much can put it to sleep regardless of Fini if Fini is on the field. And a Copper Berry or pretty much Amoonguss or Venusaur helps you to get a Sleep Powder off or Spore off on the opponent's Yveltal, and as a result, win the game. So these are some checks I wanted to cover. Next time we're going to be definitely dissecting Xerneas, and after that I'm going to see what I'm going to cover. Basically probably a Players' Cup meta, post Players' Cup qualifiers, Players' Cup meta. So yeah, that's it, and I'll catch you next time. See ya!